Okay, good morning, everyone. It is now 9 o'clock, and I would like to convene this abbreviated meeting. I note for the record that all 5 members are present. Once again, we have 2 vacancies on the committee, and they've been vacant pretty much all this year. I also see a guest coming on. If you could identify yourself, just say hello, 508 457 8743. And just, I don't know who that is. If you could just turn your voice on and just identify yourself for the record. Okay, I guess not. Moving forward, again, this is a special meeting of the committee. Has everybody looked at the agenda? First of all, I just want to note that the meeting is being broadcast by Bourne Community Television and recorded by Bourne Community Television. And further, if that person or any other members of the public want to make a comment, I need you to raise your hand. And at the appropriate time in the discussion after the committee's finished its deliberations on these meetings, we can take any questions or comment from that member of the public.
So Bob, I have a question about what's the position on anonymous attendees? Or maybe Anne Marie knows? I don't know. I mean, I think we should know who's on.
Unless they speak, they are not obligated really to identify themselves.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Moving forward, I'm operating with 2 screens here.
Can you guys hear me now?
Hey, Wendy,
Yes.
what's your phone? Is your
That's
phone
Wendy's.
number 508
That's Wendy's.
Yes.
457
Yeah,
8743?
That's my phone because I'm having some connectivity problems.
There you go.
It's just me.
Problem solved.
No
Okay.
worries. The world we live in. That's what the problems come. Some of the problems we're here trying to solve. Okay. Okay. And thank you for your all of your continued efforts on this. Okay, I am going to dispense with any review of minutes unless something comes up where we have to refer to past minutes, and we'll then rely on our clerk Wendy to find the final of the draft minute as it comes up. But we will again go through all of the minutes on the 15th in our next formally regularly scheduled meeting. Again, I'm going to dispense with any communications that have come in, unless Anne Marie, you see anything urgent that's come into the town.
I have not.
Nope. Okay, and I'm going to move forward with our single agenda item, which is continued discussions on GAP and BEAD funding, and then just some discussions on guidance for the 2 representatives from this committee who will be attending the 11 a.m. meeting with MBI, chaired by MBI, and graciously quickly called by them, and with representatives of Comcast. If anybody, again, that is a closed meeting, and the 2 reps for that that I selected were myself and Jed. Anne Marie, will you be there? Yeah, Anne Marie will be there.
Myself and MJ will be from the
and
select board.
Marlene McCullum will be attending
Marlene will
too.
also be present. Yes.
Okay, so that's the town delegation, for lack of a better term. Sounds a bit formal, but again, I want to move forward with this, and Brian, during his 36-hour plane flights, prepared this briefing document, some of which has been kicking around before, that is relevant in terms of guidance, perhaps. Certainly for Jed and me as the SciTech reps, and certainly of interest to MJ and Anne Marie. I think either now or right after the meeting, I ought to send this off to MJ for her to look at. I don't think she was on the distribution list. I'm going to refer everybody to page 5 of this document. And Brian, can you possibly put it up and screen share it?
I'm on the road. I'm at the hospital right now. So my connection is a little bit up on screen.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Can someone else put this up if you can? The PDF is probably the quickest to put up, and I will sign on a second time from my my laptop to try to get this up on the screen so everybody can see the same thing. Again, this is not for editing, discussion, etc. This is a briefing document generally internally for the committee and for the delegation here. There we go. And if you would just take a look at that, Brian, can you kind of walk us through first? Let's look at the top part. Again, this is a repeat of the conditions that were put in the December. I've got this almost memorized now. December 5, 2023 letter of support to Comcast for their GAP 1 application.
So on that, Bob, I don't remember full DOCSIS 4 being in that letter. I thought it was DOCSIS 3.1 with an expanded spectrum. Yeah, I don't see. I mean, I'm looking at the draft letter, December 5th, 2023.
Okay.
DOCSIS 4 isn't mentioned.
Does the 1.8 spectrum expansion from 1.2, does that require DOCSIS 4?
No, we were at that point, we were talking about DOCSIS 3.1 with an expanded spectrum. The main conversation for my recollection is we were talking about the mid-split upstream. The idea is that when you widen the spectrum, you can open up an area for more upstream channels in the mid-range called mid-split. And by having more upstream channels, you can offer up to 1 gigahertz upstream. But it's still DOCSIS 3.1.
So the 1.8 spectrum requires different stuff, was my understanding, since they have to
Absolutely.
replace they have to remove all the amplifiers and go to
Yeah.
node plus 0. And then you have to upgrade all of the modems, and you have to upgrade all the connection taps, and you have to basically redo the whole thing, kit and caboodle. Whereas the 1.2 is an incremental upgrade where they don't have to fix everything.
Correct. So just to be clear, we don't know that the amplifiers are out of spec. They probably are, but they aren't always. They could have been adding wideband amplifiers that we don't know about recently. And node 0 is not required here. In fact, node 0 is usually used with 1.2 spectrum in order to get some of the higher rates.
Okay, Jed, we've got to do a little education here. I think you pointed out, based on the invite list, that at least one of the representatives from Comcast is a lawyer. Okay.
Yeah, one of them, I looked them up on LinkedIn. One of them is a vice president in government affairs. It looks like he's probably Gala's boss, but he's probably in that chain of command. And the other is a woman who used to work for the Department of Telecommunications in Massachusetts, also in government affairs. One could speculate she's the one that works with MBI and the state on behalf of Comcast.
Okay. Now, node 0, my understanding of node 0, and correct me if I'm wrong, but node 0 means that there's no required amplifiers downstream of the split at the node until you reach the user. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So node 5 would mean that they'd have to have node plus 5 would mean they'd have to have 5 intermediate amplifiers.
Oh gosh, I hope
Correct.
nobody does.
Right.
Yeah.
But in rural
Yeah,
places,
theoretically they can go to 6, but that's it's not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I mean, if that exists, it's for a very, very small number of people in a long, long run.
in real rural areas, I've heard of that. Okay. And the possibilities for failure are endless, as you
Yeah,
can
they are,
imagine.
but I don't think any of that exists in our town.
Okay, good.
Can I point out something very quickly? I just regarding DOCSIS 4. I did some research last night, and if for some reason, if they were kind enough to institute DOCSIS 4, currently there are no commercially available modems that one can purchase outside of leasing one from Comcast. At the moment, there are some companies that are threatening to make them. I own my own modem, which saves me quite a bit of money. But nobody is making a DOCSIS 4.0 modem right now that you can just go out and buy on your own. If they were to do it, you'd be leasing it from Comcast. They don't, as
That's
far as I know,
correct.
Comcast doesn't offer, unlike Verizon, who says, yeah, you can buy it from us. Comcast appears to not offer that option from what I can tell.
Right.
But yeah.
But we're not
Jed,
going to, I mean, DOCSIS 4 wasn't in the original letter. That's my point
okay.
from what's here.
Okay. So let's not get too wrapped up on that. The point.
Hello?
Yes, Wendy, go ahead.
Point of clarification. How much of this do you need in your minutes? Because I can't write that fast, and I'm not that familiar with these technical aspects.
Well, Chair's ruling on this is that this has been submitted for discussion by the committee.
Mhm.
So this will be appended to the minutes.
Okay.
Okay. And you can
Fine.
say, you can just say there was an extensive discussion about the section on CTAC reps on page 5, et cetera, clarifying a lot of the technical details, shall we say.
That would
So
have been my initial impulse, but I want to be sure.
Is
Yeah,
everybody
this
okay
does-
with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So the hardest requirement, so I've got the support letter up here. The hardest requirement is the extended spectrum to 1.8 gigahertz, because that is like, we'll call it the best cable can do. With
It's the widest probably the widest spectrum commercially available. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they were to write a check to their existing supplier relationships, they could do that. It could be done if they wanted to, and it's the best of the best that you could buy now.
Once again, my view on this, again, as one of the reps and maybe not as your chair, but gleaning from what we've discussed in the past, we have two things we want to do. Is one, we want to fix the problems in Bourne that exist out there right now, and which is what BEAD money should be intended for. But also we want to, and these conditions in the letter, try to push Comcast towards providing a system that's out there that's future-proof for decades. In the future, they can put DOCSIS 4 modems on the end at every user. They can, they've got the spectrum there to be able to reduce the number of splits going to homes, et cetera. Again, if they put something in that is obsolete, gets us another 5 or 10 years down the line, and it's obsolete, and then there is no more federal money, we're done. We've essentially lost the golden opportunity here. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it is. But I guess the other thing I want to be clear about, right? This meeting is strictly about the conditions in the support letter, right? We don't get to drift too far from that topic.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think-
That's what they're
I think
addressing, what was in the letter.
True.
And I think
but
we should stick to those because, due to procurement law, that's what we stated, that's what was agreed upon.
Yeah.
These are the terms. So, they either meet what's in this letter or they withdraw.
Okay, again, just to be clear, our long-term objective, the underlying objectives of the whole program have been exactly what or some version of what I just stated.
Yeah, totally agreed.
Okay, but we don't have to go in there. I just want to make sure everybody is sure that that's the ground rules that we put those conditions in under.
And we also did those assuming it was 16 locations, not 1,816, since speed was going to be likely a second provider, which, as we've learned, if there's no competition, the tendency is to underinvest and not take care of the systems. So when we wrote this letter of support, it was for 16 locations, and no more. That's all that this was intended to do.
And once again,
while getting a townwide upgrade.
Once again, for the record, at that time of the letter, the locations that were identified at that time were the 16, right? Not the 4 and not the 1,800 that came under the speed challenge testing. Correct, Brian?
Correct. Yeah, there were
Okay.
16 under and unserved locations. The app that we've received that was submitted by Comcast only listed 4 of the 16 locations and the other 12 as ineligible. We still don't know why it's listed as ineligible. That's never been clarified by Comcast or MBI.
And for that, they received a grant of $24,000 out of a total cost of $35,000. Is that correct, Brian, on that order?
Yeah, essentially it was a plan to go from a neighboring node or location, just extend it up into some couple of hard to reach locations, and then upgrade the node slightly, just the one click from the current tech, not the future-proof leap that we asked for in this letter.
Right. Okay. Very good. And again, this is the subsequent decision to add in the extra 1,700 is not a subject for this discussion specifically, but that was a decision made by MBI, not by Comcast, as from what I've been able to discern from this. Okay, so
that was MBI's decision, and MBI could choose to do otherwise.
Okay, so Jed, you and I and Anne Marie, et cetera, we ought not to range into that particular decision because Comcast was apparently not a party to that one. That might be a separate discussion later on.
Right.
Okay.
They might, if MBI is there, they might bring it up since the timeline's so tight. So I think we should be ready for MBI to veer the conversation, not Comcast. So we should at least have what we're going to say if the conversation veers prepared.
And again, the briefing document does a good job at going through this.
By the way, I mean, just to be clear too, in the support letter, it does say that our support is contingent upon these improvements being implemented townwide.
Yeah,
Right.
and the 1.8 is that's a high bar.
Totally.
That's good.
Totally. I mean, this would be
great technology. I'd love to have 1.8.
Right.
It's great. It's as we've said in the past. It's not a technology limit. It's a will to use the right technology
that's right.
for the
But I just
application.
want to be clear that so we're asking for them in this the condition in this letter is that they implement this technology townwide.
Yeah, and so to amount to a complete and total overhaul of the entire network
So
to the best it could be.
But doesn't it just obviate this whole discussion about number of parcels?
So the parcels would shift to BEAD and still be eligible based on the rules. So
yeah, but this is just the gap, right? This is just the gap.
Right.
I get all of that, but we're just talking about support for gap here.
Well, so we never intended the additional locations to end up in gap like that. As when this letter was written, it was 16 locations. The other 1,800 weren't supposed to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's a very real possibility MBI tries to include this in the discussion.
Right.
If it comes up, we will certainly do that. Again, frankly, if this is not trying to discern the business case that Comcast is putting on this, but if they get a substantial delta on their original 24,000 to cover the extra 1,700 locations that we've identified in the census block group and some of the other ones outside that. That's a significant financial co-funding that could pay for this whole thing one time only.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a significant win for the town because the condition here is they got to do the whole town. So if they're going to make it easier for Comcast to do the whole town, we win.
Yeah, as long as it's done to the 1.8 level, since that's upgradable. So that's
But that's what it says.
yeah.
That's what we said. Well, that's what we intended.
And that was the marching
Okay.
orders. What would we agree to? This is the best cable can be, and if you're going to give us that, we'd be perfectly happy with the best
Right.
cable can do.
Okay. Again, without going into a lot of the details, unless they come up, does anybody else have any immediate further instructions for your at least partially able negotiating team here?
One thing I wanted to bring up, and in Brian's document, which by the way, Brian, is really excellent, brought up the fact that if Comcast is allowed to serve these few homes by the nature of the BEAD funding, it might lock out any other ISPs just because of the fact that they'd say, well, it's already, they've already covered a certain area. And once you cover that area, right, the 10% rule comes into effect, and it means that it would say, okay, Verizon, or okay, sorry, it's already been covered. There's no more funding available. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah. So if MBI assigns, the 1,816 locations to Comcast, no one can get it under BEAD. So it wouldn't create competition in this. If Comcast gets their 16 locations, as we wrote the letter for, upgrades the whole town to 1.8, the remaining 1,800, due to the way the rules are written, is still eligible for BEAD, since gap happened before, and the funds are to the 16, not to the 1,800. So if it's split and Comcast gets the 16, meets the terms of the letter, which is upgrade the whole town, those 1,800 are still grant eligible under BEAD due to just the way the rules are written.
Okay, so even
Okay.
if they have cable or fiber in an area that crosses close by to where these 16 locations are, it's not a problem?
Correct, due to the way the funding rules are. So deduplication of funding. If the 16 are removed, the 1,800 are not if Comcast gets the 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just for everybody else's information, MBI has released a list of who they intend to give out or who has submitted BEAD applications, and the only BEAD application that has been submitted for the town of Bourne is from Open Cape. So theoretically, and given what Brian just stated, Open Cape could come in the play and make a bid for the extra 1,800 places, for instance. If those
it's
are
worth
not
discussing that, because there's two new factors that we haven't discussed in the past, which was the MBI's announcement about round 2 and that document that I obtained the other day with the bidders list. Due to some very carefully worded public records requests to dodge the actual applications, because those are still embargoed, we got the bidders list, so by town. So yeah, Open Cable is our only bidder. And so put that aside for a second. Round 2 has been quote unquote canceled. And instead of an open bidding process like we assumed, MBI's logic is that we only have so many locations left. We're just going to proceed to direct negotiations with the ISPs we've received bids from, and or any other ISP that we want to approach. The way they worded it is, it seemed like they were going to first work with ISPs that have bid other towns, but any ISP could if they got to them quickly, apply to be an eligible bidder. So MBI is going to directly negotiate all the CAI locations and all the remaining BSLs that haven't been bid on with whoever they feel like. This has some advantages and disadvantages to the normal procurement process. The disadvantages, town preferences could be ignored. On the flip side, a town could approach MBI and say, this is who we want to work with, let's just do this. There's a lot more flexibility where we could say, pursue the Healy administration co-funds for towns, because we could just say, hey, we want to work with this provider, we want the co-funding money to sweeten the pot, let's put it together. And we're not in this contingent arrangement where we have to do it before they put in a grant app, because the whole thing is direct negotiation. So we could put it together and say, subject to the negotiation with MBI, Bourne would like to apply for this money to give to X, Y, and Z. So we could just say, hey, Open Cape, would you be willing to get the remaining 1,800 locations? You already applied for 2. These 1,800 are along the way and outside of the path of the fiber you're going after anyway. Do you want them? That can be a conversation. We could have the same conversation with Verizon. In theory, we could have the same conversation with Comcast, but we've already stated the limitations of what they have, and that might not work. Or we could approach another provider and say, hey, go after this. So we have flexibility if we move rapidly.
And it's not us; it's us convincing MBI to make those approaches to other.
Correct.
Yeah. And once again, the town has no real activity in any of those negotiations other than to watch from the sidelines. Just to be clear, Anne Marie, we're not saying that this is something that we have to do from the town.
Right. Yeah. We just have to be careful in committing to anything, town wide.
Okay. None of us, nobody on that call from the town is going to be able to commit to anything, period. Okay.
And that's the advantage of the negotiating process. It's MBI committing to stuff. So that may open up some room to resubmit all our past works that have been approved and say, look at what we've written, and use that as guidance, things like that. So since we're not directly obligated to produce something.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything else that we need to go over? I do not think so. If in that case, the only immediate action item I have is, since they've now been submitted to the committee, I'm going to forward these also to MJ and to Marlene, and just say that these were discussed, and I will point out the one apparent inclusion of DOCSIS 4.0 in that list on page 5, and say that was erroneous. Okay, it is not in the letter. I just want to make that clear, and we can go from there. Okay.
Yeah, DOCSIS 4 isn't even the hardest requirement. It's the 1.8. So when we, that's the tough one. That's what it's going to come down to. Again,
Anne Marie is probably the most conversant in this. But MJ and Marlene, they have to be jacks of all trades or Jills of all trades, and get conversant in the details of all kinds of stuff that the town gets involved in. And, I guarantee they're not down at that level of familiarity with this. So Jed, me, and Anne Marie are going to have to guide them along, as the case may be. Anne Marie, are you available this morning if MJ has any, or Marlene has any questions? Can you respond to them, or do you want me to respond to them? Yep. And I'll give them just a note to say that if they have any immediate concerns before 11 o'clock, to contact you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Jed
Second.
moves.
Second.
John seconds. Okay. Going around the room, Jed,
Yes.
John,
Aye.
Brian,
yes.
Wendy,
She's
on mute, I
muted.
think. She's muted. Can anybody see her? Is she waving her hand? Yes.
Yeah, she's got a picture up.
Okay, that's not going to help. I need a vote, Wendy. Can you sign back on? The chair votes aye.
Well, we can call it abstain.
Aye.
Well,
Oh, there it is.
Nope, I
there
heard
we
an
go.
aye.
Very good.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, you
very
got
good.
me.
Okay, so we've unanimously agreed to adjourn at 9:30, a record for us, even though it was a reduced agenda. Okay, very good, and wish us luck for the afternoon.
Good luck, Bob.
Okay. Okay, bye-bye, folks.